Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely heartbreaking historical tragedy, one that literally revolutionized modern engineering. We're talking about the Hyatt Regency walkway collapse. It's a disaster that didn't just alter the skyline of Kansas City, it fundamentally and permanently changed how buildings are constructed and inspected across the entire globe. I want you to picture the scene with me for a second. It's Kansas City, Missouri, July 17th, 1981. Just a totally ordinary warm summer evening. The Hyatt Regency Hotel is hosting one of its incredibly popular Friday night dance parties. Literally hundreds of people are packed into the hotel's spectacular multi-story atrium. Down on the main floor, people are happily dancing to live music, just soaking in that weekend joy. And up above them, others are standing on these magnificent modern suspended walkways, leaning over the glass railings, just watching the celebration below. It was, by all accounts, a scene of total joy and relaxation. But, that joyful scene was masking a really dark reality. Nobody there realized they were standing beneath a disaster waiting to happen. The atmosphere was light, the band was playing loud, and the sheer architectural marvel of those suspended walkways felt completely secure. Yet hidden right inside the very steel holding those spectators up in the air, a catastrophic failure was brewing, right above their heads. So let's look at how fast this actually happened. At 7 p.m., the party is in full swing. Everything feels perfectly normal. But just 5 minutes later, at exactly 7:05 p.m., a massive, loud cracking sound echoes sharply through the atrium. It cuts right over the live music. For a brief, terrifying second, people just look around in sheer confusion. Then, suddenly, without any other warning whatsoever, two of those suspended walkways completely give way. In a matter of literal seconds, thousands of tons of steel and concrete crashed directly onto the crowded lobby below. The sound was absolutely deafening. Absolute panic sets in. People are running in every direction as this thick, choking cloud of dust instantly fills the air. The people up on the walkways had absolutely no chance to escape. And down below, dozens of partygoers were instantaneously trapped beneath thousands of pounds of twisted metal, broken glass, and heavy concrete. It was sheer devastation in the blink of an eye, and emergency calls immediately flooded the local dispatch centers. Within minutes, the terrifying scale of the rescue operation became obvious. Firefighters, police officers, paramedics, and even just regular citizen volunteers flooded the hotel. But they were met with this dense, impossibly tangled mountain of debris. Doctors rapidly set up emergency triage right out on the front lawn, while rescue teams were literally crawling through these terrifyingly narrow spaces in the wreckage. They had to cut through the steel so carefully, terrified that one wrong move would cause a secondary collapse. They actually had to bring in massive construction cranes to lift the heaviest sections off the pile. And throughout that entire night, rescuers would order total silence across the site. Everyone would just freeze so they could listen for the faint voices of survivors trapped underneath. Some of those people remained pinned in the dark for hours before finally being pulled out. When the dust finally settled and the rescue operation ended, the toll was just staggering. 114 people lost their lives that evening. More than 200 others were severely injured. This single event instantly became one of the deadliest structural failures in American history. I mean, just let that number sit with you for a second. Over 100 lives lost, all at a Friday night dance party.
Which brings us to the most pressing question, the exact thing investigators frantically set out to answer the very next morning. How does a modern, spectacular hotel atrium just suddenly fall apart? More specifically, how did a seemingly minor engineering change cause such massive devastation? To really understand this, we have to pivot from the human tragedy and dive straight into the fascinating yet tragic forensic engineering investigation.
Okay, so here's what investigators quickly discovered. The collapse actually wasn't a flaw in the original architectural concept. It was a supposedly small tweak made during the actual construction phase. Builders wanted to save some time and simplify the assembly process, right? So they changed a single continuous steel support rod into two separate offset rods. That's it. But that tiny, seemingly harmless modification effectively doubled the stress on the walkway's beams. Doubled it. Because of this structural shift, the modified design simply could not safely support the weight of the people standing on it. Its structural integrity was entirely compromised from day one, essentially turning those walkways into a ticking time bomb. This catastrophic failure served as a massive, undeniable global wake-up call. It forced sweeping, permanent changes to the entire construction industry. Building codes were heavily strengthened across the board. Structural calculations became far more rigorous than they had ever been. It established a hard and fast rule that even the most minor design changes, like swapping out a single rod, must be meticulously, carefully reviewed by head engineers before any construction can continue. And perhaps most importantly, professional accountability was drastically increased. The people designing these structures had to take absolute legal ownership of their safety. The real-world impact of those changes literally cannot be overstated. Today, more than 40 years later, the Hyatt Regency collapse is a mandatory case study in engineering schools all across the world. It remains one of the absolute most critical lessons in structural safety out there. Every single new architect, every new structural engineer, they all learn about this specific summer night in Kansas City, precisely so that history never, ever repeats itself.
I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful thought straight from our source material. Quote, "Every calculation matters. Behind every engineering decision are human lives that depend on getting it right." End quote. You see, engineering isn't just about math or concrete or steel. It is a profound human responsibility. This tragedy is a permanent, sobering reminder of the immense weight of that responsibility. So the next time you walk into a spectacular building or stand on a suspended balcony, ask yourself, do you know the history holding you up?